Hey guys, welcome back to inSTEM. I'm thrilled to have with me Simran. And Simran and I are both chemical engineers whose career paths have taken us through process engineering, continuous improvement, manufacturing, and now in the dynamic space of management consulting, especially in the Industry 4.0 area. So we wanted to use this clip to address a few fireside questions for anyone who might be out there considering a switch from chemical engineering or any other engineering discipline for that matter into consulting. We hope our answers will be able to guide you towards making an informed decision. Should we get into it, Simran?
Let's get in.
Awesome. So do you want to start us off with the questions?
Yeah, so Tolu, let's start off with you.
Yep.
What initially piqued your interest in consulting?
So the way in which I'll answer this question is actually the same approach I take when I'm considering a new role, in that I look at what I'm interested in learning and what I'm curious about, and I use that to inform what I do next. So with the case of consulting, I was working on a manufacturing plant, really enjoying it, but I was starting to get to the point where I wanted to step out of my comfort zone. So I started to search deep as to what I want, where I wanted to challenge myself next, and the things that I wanted to gain out of my next role was, solving problems at a higher level, working on a variety of projects. And when I put those two together, consulting was the role that embodied that. It felt like the perfect fit. So yeah, that was the driving factor towards going into consulting.
Yeah, and I'd argue very much the same.
And my question to you is, what do you think are the biggest strengths that chemical engineers have that make them valuable assets in consulting?
Sure. I think I'll pick on kind of three main ones. I think the first is kind of that technical background, right? Because you're coming in from an industry, and both me and you kind of work in Industry 4.0. That technical knowledge enables you to essentially have the same language, the same dictionary that you and your clients are ultimately speaking. So, for example, I remember on one of my last projects, we were talking about, how do we contextualize the benefits of this transformation? And I was just like, easy. It's the 8 types of lean waste, and I had everyone from my team kind of look at me being like, what are you saying? But the client immediately was like, that's exactly what we want, right? So I think that first one is kind of your technical background. The second is this idea of problem solving, right? You're going to come to an idea or a transformation or a project from a different perspective than everyone else is. And the last kind of piece I'd touch upon is this idea of structure. I think engineers have a tendency to kind of see the big picture, but then also know how to get into the nitty and gritty. So those would be my 3.
Excellent. I totally relate to all 3 of them. That's interesting. Should we go on to the next question?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. For you, Tolu, for aspiring consultants, can you share 3 key practical steps that you took to transition from engineering into Big 4 consulting?
So the first thing for me was networking and research, right? So I leveraged my existing network, basically used LinkedIn, stalked people, basically.
Oh, I do that all the time.
To see people who had made similar transitions from engineering, from industry into consulting, got in touch with them to learn more about what they did to stand out and to ultimately get into the consulting role. So network, and also the research aspect came through actually attending lots of industry events and webinars where I could actually speak to consultants and actually understand their day-to-day and also validate whether, my understanding of what I was going to be doing is in reality what I'm going to be doing. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important. The second thing is, mastering the application process. I found the application and process for consulting to be significantly different to that of engineering, in particular the case studies, right?
Yeah, I even found the 1-page CV to be a bit completely different to engineering.
Exactly, because we're used to 2-page CVs. So, I had to bring myself up to speed to, the new set of expectations. I found Victor Cheng's resources incredibly useful. He does a lot of stuff on, case study preparations.
Check out his book.
Completely agree. Definitely. And My Consulting Prep was another, website that I found really useful. And the last thing is tailored CV, right? It's important to recognize that you're bringing value into consulting, but you need to be able to communicate that value that highlights that you are a suitable candidates for consulting. So I had to change up my CV, and it took quite a number of iterations, but it was really to convey, the skills that were valuable in the consulting, industries.
And getting that sense checked with like your university.
Absolutely.
Even as an alumni, did you know you can go back to your university
I
CV
did not
center?
know that. Something new we've learned
So
today.
yeah,
Be using that going forward. Okay, so next question for you, Simran. Given our chemical engineering backgrounds, what is one skill you have found crucial to learn or refine in the world of consulting?
Sure. I think it goes back to this idea of being able to translate and communicate impactful transformations, to lay people. I think sometimes as engineers, we run the risk of getting too technical, and you do need to take a step up, to your point of like even rejigging your CV.
Yeah.
I think that kind of biggest core skill set that I found in consulting that I've really been able to hone in is this idea of the big picture, fundamentally how is what you're doing changing society, and then how is it changing the project, how is it changing the people on the ground. And the science can be the core element on how that societal change is driven, but you need to be able to speak to that with numbers and with impact on people. And I think that idea of honing in on that structure and that big picture would be the biggest asset.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. That's an excellent perspective that you shared on that.
Okay, Tolu, last question for you. Transitioning into a new field can be quite tough. So what's one challenge you faced and how did you navigate it?
I must admit that when I joined consulting, I found myself maybe comparing myself to people who had built their career entirely in consulting. During the comparison, I then felt out of step with their communication style, their presentation style. They tended to come across a lot more polished, and I think you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a way in which consultants speak. Even the PowerPoint presentations. There's a way in which the approaches are coming from industry. I felt a lot less refined, but then I had to remind myself that I had a very unique set of skills as well, and experience, which is real life industry experience. So I'm still learning to leverage that, to understand that is my USP. I recognize the importance of adapting to this, new environment that I'm in, but also understanding that I've got something that sets me apart, which is my industry experience. So that's one challenge I face, and that's how I'm addressing it.
And the rest of those skill sets like PowerPoint building and things are learnable, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you've got to see it that way. And now to the final question. Industry 4.0 sounds exciting. Can you share a recent example you've come across where a company leveraged technology to improve their operations?
Sure thing, yeah. So I'll speak a little bit to one of the projects that I did as an Industry 4.0 consultant. And it was this idea of taking factories and making them paperless. Right. So essentially taking the paper out of the factory completely and digitizing it. And that is essentially from a sustainability piece, there's the carbon savings of no longer being able to use paper. But on the ground, it meant that people who were, now working off a cloud document could actually populate it and kind of have manufacturing and quality assurance and quality control happening in near real time. Whereas before they literally had to take this piece of paper in and out of the factory, wait for someone to do it. If the operator, was off shift and they had a question about what they'd written into that paper, they would have to wait weeks for them to return. Wow. So, there were like efficiency gains, there were quality control gains, because in a digital document, you can actually flag up certain errors that you can't on paper, So you eliminate that idea of kind of human or documentation malpractice, essentially. It was a combination of kind of efficiency, quality, and sustainability gains. And I think this idea of going paperless is going to become much, much bigger.
Awesome. And those three things really embody what Industry 4.0 is about. Really, it sounds like a very interesting project. That brings us to the end of our questions. We hope that has been useful for you. All of the resources mentioned in the answers will be shared in the description box. Thank you. Until next time.